District Governing Board meeting at 2:13 p.m. Can we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Chair Yuri Anderson.
Here.
Vice Chair Lauren Stack.
Here.
Trustee Rosalind Green.
Here.
Trustee Rick Johnson.
Here.
And Trustee Marilyn Dunn Gustafson is absent today.
Great, thank you. We do have a quorum, so we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If folks could mute themselves, and Joreen, if you could lead us in the pledge, and if you can stand if you're able.
Oh, certainly. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joreen.
Thank
All
you.
right. Item 3C is report of action taken in closed session. There is no reportable action. Item 3D is approval of the agenda. Is there?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Motion by Stex, second by Johnson. Is there any member of the public who wishes to make a comment on this item? Yes, let me see. Let me give you, if you're on the phone, *9 to raise your hand. If you are on the computer, participants tab, and then you should see raise hand in there. Seeing none, we'll close comment and have a roll call vote on approval of the agenda.
There we go. Chair Yuri Anderson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lauren Steck.
Yes.
Trustee Rosalind Green.
Yes.
And Trustee Rick Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unanimous.
Great, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is item 4A, public comment. This is for any item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of the governing board. And we will note that we had one public comment submitted via email, and that is attached to the packet. Is there any member of the public who would like to make a comment, a public comment this afternoon? You can raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we will close public comment and move right into new business. First item, 5A, information item, presentation of the MPC 2020 Superintendent President Recruiting Schedule Brochure and Job Description. And I believe Dr. Llewellyn will make this presentation this afternoon. Is that correct? All right, Will.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We'll I'll provide a little background, and then we'll walk through the brochure, if that's okay. Just a little history in terms of how we arrived at this document. And so public forums were held for college employees, community members, and students on June 30th and July 1st. And were attended, some of those sessions were attended by quite a few people. I think, don't have the numbers here in front of me, but I know one of the sessions, I think we had 30, 40 folks there as part of it. The others were a little less attended. At the same time, there was a survey that was distributed to gather additional input that went out very broadly, very widely. And that was available from about June 23rd to July 2nd, where folks could respond to that. And there were 184 responses to that survey. So that was quite a response and really good to see. Additionally, there were a few email communications that were received, just sort of independent of all the other input. I think it was 2 or 3 that were received, and those were entered into the, to all of the input. Utilizing that input, then the consultants, myself and Dr. Jones-Smith, developed a draft position announcement that was shared with the full search committee. The search committee met on July 8th to review and revise the position announcement and develop that position announcement. And after several hours of work by the search committee, turned out some additional review and revision was still needed. And being on a very tight timeline for all of this, the search committee acted to form a small subgroup of individuals to continue the editing. And I believe we met the next day on July 9th to continue that work. And I think many of us thought that that would probably be a very brief meeting, but I think we went over 2 hours on that meeting as well. To finish up that editing and taking into consideration all of the input. And that subgroup then completed that final draft of the position announcement, which you have here today that we will walk through. The final draft was then sent back out to the full search committee. And after a review by the full search committee again, there was one recommendation that came back about adding some language in one section of the position announcement. And because the search committee had no further meetings after that, no action was taken on that recommendation. But when we get to that section of the position announcement, we'll spend a little more time on that if that's okay with everybody at the appropriate time and where that recommendation was made. Any questions about that in terms of some of the background and history leading up to where we are today?
No questions.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and walk through the position announcement as this draft that we have right now, and just kind of go section by section. In this first section that you have in front of you here, you have the position, which is really just a kind of a broad statement and context for the position, sort of an introduction, if you will, to the position, and then the rest of the announcement, of course, gets into some of the detail surrounding the position. In the next section, which I really want to commend the search committee, and we spent a lot of time on this section of the position announcement, and I really want to credit them with really giving some thoughtful consideration of what went into this section, and also the order of the material and sort of the arrangement of it. And I think everybody in the end was very pleased with this background information really about the college and the community. And of course, you know, the challenge with this is there's so much that could go into this. Just look at those 2 words, the college and the community. You know, where do you begin? Where do you end? And so I really, again, commend the search committee for their incredible work in really refining this and spending time with it so that it really reflected in a very brief way the college and the community. And hopefully you've had a chance to look at this. One of the things we did that I don't think was there previously was we added some links to some very important plans and goals that you all have developed, and where it's very easy to come right off of the brochure, and a person can click on those links and be taken directly to those important documents that really provide some of the detail that you just can't put all of that into a few pages in a brochure. Joreen, if you could go ahead and scroll down, I think we have, it continues there onto that page. On page 3, you can see the rest of that section for the college and the community. Any questions or discussion about that section?
Questions from the board? Looks like no, Will.
Okay. The next section is Mpc Strengths and Challenges, and starting with the strengths. And again, the committee spent a considerable amount of time on these two items within this section, the strengths and the challenges. And again, it's for me, and being a part of that and listening to that discussion and that input and the crafting of what went in here. Again, the committee, I thought, did a really excellent job in terms of strengthening what was in the initial draft that myself and Dr. Smith provided to the committee, a sort of raw material. The committee really did a nice job of taking that and then putting their own stamp on it, is kind of the way I like to describe it. And the committee really took ownership of that and were very serious and very thoughtful about the wording, the arrangement, the kind of combining things and the order in which things appeared in here. Really, I thought they did a great job of doing that work. Any questions or discussion about what we have in here under strengths and challenges? I think it continues on the next page, Joreen. Why don't we go ahead? And no, I guess not. It did end with that last one. Sorry, can we go back one more there? Okay, all right. Well, hearing nothing else on that section, let's move to the next section, the desirable qualities. And again, considerable reworking, if you will, of the raw material that went into this by the committee, and also some really good wordsmithing, which is always a challenge with these types of documents. And we had a couple of folks on the committee there that were very helpful to us, particularly when it comes to the English language and how we word things and how we list things. And so it's always great to have somebody on your committee that comes from that English background. Those folks come in handy. And so I want a little shout out to Jeannie and for her stamp on this and helping us with cleaning up a lot of aspects of it. A lot of input from the community on these items. Again, a lot of raw material to work with. Going back to the survey, particularly 184 individual responses is pretty impressive, and a lot to digest and a lot to consider in putting this together. But I think I feel really good about what emerged in this section as well. And of course, the first thing there would emerge right up to the top, which I think we can all agree should be student-centered commitment to student access, learning, and student success, and everything else kind of follows from that. Any questions or discussion there?
I have one very minor question.
Sure.
So, as time goes on, things oftentimes get put in a certain order. Like, LGBTQ. You know, it falls trippingly off the tongue to do it one way and harder the other way. In recent months, for sure, if not the past couple of years, I've seen on the second bullet, I've seen the equity, inclusion, and diversity in a slightly different order. Usually it goes DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, with inclusion being the last one, which is the real goal. I'm wondering if there was a reason why you did it this way, that's fine. If not, it's the one thing where I tripped up when I was reading the whole document.
I think there's some folks here in the meeting today that were part of this, and it's an interesting point, but I can tell you, at least my recollection, and those of you who are there can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we even talked about that at all. The order, believe it or not, it never emerged, and I think there's some folks here on the call who could add to that if they want, but I don't recall that ever coming up. I think it just came out that way and everybody was okay with it and really didn't. In other words, we never had any discussion about the order of the words, but I know what you're saying, Lauren. You're right. That's typically, if we see it in various documents and so forth, it tends to be what you just said. That's probably the most consistent way that most of us have seen it.
And I personally like having inclusion comes last, just because I think, you pause when you say it, and that's the prize, and we don't want to get our eyes off that particular prize. So I would like, if nobody has a reason for doing it this way, I'd hope we can make a slight change to put it in the other order.
Again, I don't recall anybody advocating, so to speak, for it to be in this order. I think it just ended up, we put it on paper that way and it just sort of stayed there. And I don't know that there was any strong rationale in terms of the order, but I know there's some other folks here on the call that were part of that. And if they have a different recollection, I'd love to hear from them.
And I will just invite the search committee members to share your thoughts and perspectives as Dr. Llewellyn invites you to do that. Feel free to engage in the conversation, particularly if it's going to help respond to one of the questions from the board members. So, but I don't recall a conversation about the order there. So,
Yuri, that's my recollection as well. For the second bullet, we didn't. I don't recall there being any discussion about the order of those three words.
and I can totally see your point, Lauren, because just I am someone who tends to like that harmony in how things are listed, and there is some cognitive dissonance when you read it and it's not the way you're seeing it. But at the same time, that also creates that moment of thought for the person where they have to go back and relook at it. So it isn't just kind of like a brush over of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm not going to advocate for any way. So I don't think it's a big change, and I'm comfortable with whatever the board decides.
I would just like to make the comment that when I read it, I was so happy to see equity leading it, because I think that's a conversation we've had as a board last year and this year very strongly, very, very strongly trying to advocate for equity. And I was happy to see it in there. With that said, I agree with the rest of you, whatever is best. But I was actually pleased when I saw that list, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, it does always draw attention when the order is changed. And I didn't think of that, Rick, of equity leading it does look good. But for me, a person that's just learning the acronyms, I'm so used to the diversity, equity, and inclusion, because like Lauren mentioned, there's already, the DEI has already been associated with that. So if it's not too much, it reads better to me, saying diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I would like to offer a perspective. I think that I know that we get wrapped up in the terms of like how it flows, but I think that still there's been challenges with achieving equity at a broader level. And I think that if we're going to lead as an institution with the equity mind framework and mindset, I would be more remiss to use equity first as a standing point. And those are just because holistically you can't achieve the others without equity consciousness, personally.
Yuri or Will, could I add a few comments?
Yeah.
Just to continue to the conversation, I think much of the conversation surrounded, I think there was a robust discussion around the equity, and I think the equity sort of came out because of our documents that we lead, equity-minded principles, the education master plan. So we were talking about those types of documents, and at the college level, not looking outwardly, but at the college level, much of what we talk about, it is about the equity principles and equity-minded concepts. So I think that was much of our dialogue was centering around that. In all honesty, I've seen the DEI more recently than in the past. It is a term that may have been out there. I know the Chancellor's Office uses that term at the local level. Many of us who are working see, as Kelly mentioned, as the equity as the lead. But with all that being said, this is a document that goes out. It does send a message if you're consistent with a larger document, such as the Chancellor's Office DEI reports and things of that sort. So I'm not objecting to either. I'm fine with either way, but the context by which equity was led was at the campus level, which many of the committee members are associated with. Equity is a term that we often use and associated with it. So I think that's some of the rationale why it came out as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. So board members, do you guys want to try to close on this, or do you want to continue and then put this on the list of things to resolve as we move along?
I think we spent more time than it was worth on it. The three concepts are useful. As I said before, I happen to like inclusion last, just because I think that's the focus of the phrase then. But the truth is that's a 1/10 of 1% change. It's a nothing change. So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know that I'm going to agree it doesn't matter, but I'm going to take that as we're comfortable with it is as written.
I agree.
All right, Will.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to page 5. And we've got several sections here. So we have the minimum qualifications. And if you've had a chance to look at that, any questions or discussion around any items in that section?
Questions from board members? No for Rick? No for Roz?
I will say that I noticed the minimum of 2 years. In the past, we had asked for a minimum of 5 years of documented successful experience in progressively responsible positions. 2 years seems, gee, kind of thin, but on the other hand, those are just the minimum qualifications. And if somebody's spectacular who has 2 years, then we could hire that person. If not, maybe they'd look better if they had more, but I think it's okay. It's just interesting that that is kind of a low number.
So I'll just say, kind of the advice or consult to the committee from our consultants was that perhaps that 5-year threshold was one of the challenges that we had when we did our previous search. And so initially it was there as 2 or 3, and committee members kind of wrong. There was a sense that there shouldn't be an or, that we should choose one number to go with. And so the 2 came back on the draft, and I don't know that anyone questioned that as the threshold for minimum.
And because it's a minimum, again, it's another one issue that I don't think we have to worry about much.
I think I would just add that the discussion, go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead. I've already done my thing.
Okay. The discussion was, I think, really about the notion of trying to be as inclusive as possible as opposed to excluding potential candidates who might, be very strong for this position. And sometimes when you set that experience level really high, then you tend to, there's oftentimes a tendency to screen out people at the very front end who you don't even get a chance to see because of that, and don't even get a chance to do some further review and taking a look at and assessing those candidates. So I think the idea was to be more inclusive rather than exclusive of candidates, applicants rather. All right, and then we have the desirable qualifications, just 3 items there. All right, the next section is condition of employment. And just sort of some of the technical aspects of the nuts and bolts of what happens eventually when you all get to that point in terms of an offer of employment, and providing some information related to that for the applicants. A lot of standard stuff in that section. And then we get into section on filing an application. Again, more of a technical aspect of the process, if you will, and providing some instruction to applicants in terms of what they need to do to initiate that application and get the ball rolling, so to speak. Next page, page 6. And again, kind of more technical aspects of the process, and providing some instruction and direction in terms of what must be included as part of the application process, along with the deadline to submit those materials, which is, as you can see, 12 noon on August 31st will be that deadline. And then an important ADA notice and non-discrimination notice. And then the last page, I think. Candidate inquiries, and Dr. Smith and myself listed there. Folks have nominations and confidential inquiries. And there's additional information being placed on that search page on the MPC website where there's additional information. I'm sorry, on the MPC website, directing them where they can find additional information regarding the college and the community. And again, going back to that section early in the position announcement, really some very brief information about the college and the community, but an opportunity for candidates to do their homework, so to speak, on the college and the community. And there's a lot of good resources where they're being directed there. And I think that's it on my end, Yuri.
Okay. So
Anything else?
I
apologize. I need to go back to that one section. I missed it. If we could go back to the desirable qualifications, apologize for that. Page 5. Where did it go now? Oh, I'm sorry. You were on the right page, I think. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So the second bullet under desirable qualities, not qualifications. So commitment to equity, inclusion, and diversity. Again, when we sent the final draft out to the full committee, there was one recommendation to add some language to this particular bullet. And Joreen, I sent this to you very late, and you probably didn't see it, but I put it on a little slide of some kind so we can kind of see it. I can read it here also. I have it in front of me. And the recommendation was to include anti-racism, that word hyphenated, anti-racism, in the bulleted item, commitment to equity, inclusion, and diversity it's actually under desirable qualities, not desirable qualifications. So that was the recommendation that came when this went back out to the full committee. There was no further meetings of the full committee, so there was no opportunity for the committee to really to weigh in on that, to discuss it as a group, and make any kind of a recommendation to include it or not to include it. And so it's here in front of you now for your consideration and for your discussion. So again, that recommendation that came forward was include anti-racism in that, add it to the language that's already there. In others, it would be commitment to, in whatever order, commitment to equity, inclusion, diversity, and anti-racism.
Any of the board members have questions about that recommendation?
I feel like we're coming late to this item. We've already heard from a couple committee members. I'd like to hear from them also on this issue if we could, because I don't know that in the 3 minutes that we've had to think about this, I don't know that I know enough about it. So perhaps you and the people who are from the committee we could benefit from your thoughts about it.
I completely agree. Are there members of the committee who would like to make comment on this recommendation? I was not on the separate ad hoc that worked on this. So you can raise your hand. All right, Jeannie, I think you can unmute yourself.
Thanks. So I've had a few days to think this over. I was part of the ad hoc group trying to incorporate the feedback into the final draft. And at the time of our discussing, we were very intentional, and we acknowledged that we were very intentional about really weaving in equity and diversity and inclusion, those concepts, into this job announcement. But I remember going away because we hadn't come to an agreement, thinking, you know, I had some feelings about this and some thoughts. And I feel even more conviction about my opinion. So I would support including the term anti-racism into this sequence. And part of that has to do with, I understand that we don't have that term explicitly stated in our Ed Master Plan, as Dr. Llewellyn really pointed out, which was very helpful, that all of our institutional documents don't really include that. Although it's not a new term, it is new to our sort of collective conversation of late. But part of my conviction lies in recent communication from the Chancellor's office, which does point to anti-racism and really calling on faculty to include anti-racist curriculum in our teachings, and the importance to really, you know, address systemic racism, you know, at the community college level, at the local level. And so if there is a call to action from the Chancellor's office, if there is a comfort level, even though we're still sort of beginning to grapple with what this term means at MPC or across California or across the United States, I think it would be in our best interest to, you know, support that phrasing, because I see that it's something that we are called upon to really look at in an explicit way. And then just from my own standpoint as a NPC community member, I would really want to see a president who is aware, not only aware of that term, but really supports what that term means, and would be the leader to bring us into sort of, you know, having those conversations as a college and working towards, you know, sort of addressing the system that is very much intertwined with the work that we're doing as far as student equity, and therefore cascades into all the work that we do, whether it's guided pathways, whether it's our teaching, et cetera. So I just wanted to offer that context. And, you know, those documents are available if you are interested in looking at the Chancellor's Office documents. I know as well that the communications that we're receiving through our regional guided pathways coordinators also includes, you know, very specific literature and guidance related to anti-racism. So it's definitely something that is really coming to light in our conversations throughout the system.
Thank you, Jeannie. I also see that Sean would like to make a comment. Sean?
Thank you. And I actually don't have much to add to what Jeannie said, other than to support it. And we did have an in-depth conversation about this on the subcommittee, and I was part of that subcommittee. And we wanted to be very intentional, and we wanted to not exclude the other marginalized populations on our campus. And one of the things that with some time that has passed, one of the things that occurs to me is if there is a concern amongst those in our campus, particularly those who are marginalized, if there is a concern that people who don't explicitly call out anti-racism as a priority, can those people who do not call that out as a priority, can an institution that does not call that out as a priority truly be committed to advancing equity? And I think that that's a valid concern, and I think we have to be mindful of that. And so I would also support adding anti-racism to a desirable quality for the reasons that Jeannie articulated, and to alleviate hopefully any concerns that someone might have about whether or not an applicant can truly be committed to that, to advancing equity without naming that as a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Rick?
Yeah, I just don't really understand, I guess, why we would avoid the opportunity to do this. It's important, and it gives us an opportunity to make a statement that's really a core value of our institution. So I certainly think it would be a wise idea to do it and to move forward with it.
I want to say, Juanita, I see that you have your hand up. We're going to take any comments on this from the committee members and the board. And then when we get to more general comments, then I'll call on you, just so you know, I'm not ignoring you. But I do see that Jessica, who's on the committee, has her hands up. And then after that, Larry. Jessica, I think you can unmute yourself.
Hi, yes. I think it's important to incorporate anti-racism because we can't have conversations about equity, inclusion, and diversity without talking about anti-racism, since it is systemically impacts students. And although we don't have this in other documents, it can set a precedence. And given the position, I think it makes a powerful statement as well for our students.
Thank you. All right, and Larry?
Yes, I just wanted to add, I wasn't part of the subcommittee, but I commend the committee for bringing this particular item to light. I think what the document does, the job announcement, by incorporating this type of phrasing, it shows that our campus is relevant. The chancellor's office has put out a call to action, and what Jeannie has said, what Sean has said, and what Jessica has said, and even Rick, that speaks to the relevance of our job announcement. And when we're talking about potential candidates and they see that our job announcement isn't necessarily stale, it's relevant, it's current, and it's speaking to terms that are now being at the forefront of many of the dialogue throughout the system, I think it sends a message, a clear message, that our campus is serious about this, and that everyone on our campus, the board and our superintendent president, as well as our faculty, classified, and administration, will be held accountable to it. So this sends a message, and we can point to something. So I think I wholeheartedly support. Ultimately, it's up to the board, but I wholeheartedly support the inclusion, ironically, of this type of a statement, sending a message to those, not just, the job announcement is not just for the people that are applying for this job. When I see this as something that I would share with my colleagues. I will share with individuals around campus, and I'm going to point to our superintendent president is going to be held accountable to this. So this is something for us to point to. I think it's far more reaching than just the job announcement. It's sending a message to our community and our campus constituency about the importance of this current dialogue that's going on. So I just wanted to add those few items.
Thanks, Larry. And I see Kelly Fletis has raised her hand.
Oh, yeah. For me, it was just to be able to chime in and say that I'm in full support as a committee member, and not only as a POC myself and a former alumni of Mpc, and working with students in the way in which I serve students who have come in from marginalized populations. It's very personal to our students at Mpc, being at the forefront of this. And I just wanted to make sure that these are conversations that haven't been able to be brought up to the forefront. And I think that we're in a time now where we have to build solidarity across the state within our other community college institutions, and our leaders at the forefront to protect our students and to make sure that we are bringing awareness that anti-racism doesn't just mean that we're not saying we're racist. We're saying that we're in advocacy of supporting policies that are reducing racial inequities across the board. So I just wanted to make sure that we keep that in the forefront, that it's not particularly our institution as some might see it, but that we're supporting the effort moving forward within that framework of anti-racism and practices and policies that really create an opportunity gap for our students.
Thank you, Kelly. I'll say too, so as Will mentioned, this recommendation came after the subcommittee had met and even after the special ad hoc that we had formed. And so our entire search committee didn't have a chance to weigh on it. So this, and we didn't have a chance to get back together. So I did ask that this come to the board in this way for us to be able to, for us to grapple with it and for our committee to weigh in. And I personally am supportive of inclusion of the anti-racist language. I think it's really, as has been stated by the different members of the committee, it's important for any applicant to know that this is part of what their work would be and what they'll be held accountable for. I think it makes a statement to our committee, or I mean our community, about being very actionable in working against those systems that are keeping people of color from advancing. I also heard in our public forums an implicit bias towards assumption that the superintendent president would be a man. You know, people would say he or him when they were describing the qualities. So I think, you know, if we think about that and who our traditional candidates and applicants could be, this is a statement that says, you know, if our pool of applicants are not necessarily people of color, there still is an expectation that you're going to be working very intentionally to break down the systems that are keeping people of color from advancing. So I would support the inclusion of anti-racist in the description of desired qualities. And we can kind of talk it out as a board now and then go to public comment in general on the whole description, or I don't know, Rick's already weighed in. Rosalind, Lauren, looks like Lauren wants to speak.
I actually wanted to hear from the audience member. I'm sure that she wants to speak on this issue and not just more general things.
Rosalind, did you want to say anything about this before we do that?
There's not a lot more to say. I would just be echoing what everybody has already said. I think that the language speaks volume to the accountability that our community would uphold our president to as a person of color as well. I believe that it's a great opportunity to have this courageous insert and just be direct about it. And like it was said already before, set the precedents. You know, and I know that I heard the language, the anti-racism is not in any other binding documents that we have, and so it's a great time to start.
All right, so with that, I think what I'll do is open it for public comment in general on the draft position announcement for the superintendent president for the Monterey Peninsula College District. And I'll start with Juanita, since you were waiting so patiently. And then after that, Adria.
Thank you. Okay, so on the anti-racism word, I do fully support that. I think it's really important, especially because I do believe that on the second page, specifically, I think it's the second, on the college and the community part, it's the second paragraph, it says that MPC, it's designated as a Hispanic serving institution, it's designated as a Umoja community. So I think when you, when you lead that this is a college that serves these two communities, you have to say that you are looking for a candidate that is anti-racist, because those two communities are being impacted by racism. So you have to specifically call out racism. I think it's really important that that word is specifically included in the job description. I think that now equity, diversity, and inclusion has become a safety word. And so I think we have to step out of our comfort zone, and we have to use intentional words that are more active. So yeah, so that's overall. In terms of you mentioned that, you know, you were very intentional in the order in which some of the bullet points were placed. And I was just wondering about, for example, in the desirable qualifications, you know, how, was it desirable qualifications or minimum qualifications, I think? Yeah, I think it was one of those, but I was just seeing that, for example, like demonstrated sensitivity to understanding of the diverse academic, socioeconomic, cultural disability. That bullet point, it was a little bit towards the bottom, I think. It's because you pointed out that you were specific about the placement of those things. I think that was it. Sorry, I was, you know, I had to jot down my thoughts, but I'll come back to it. If I remember, I'll jot it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. And I should have said beforehand, we do have a 3-minute limit on public comment. You were under 3 minutes, but I'm keeping a timer over here. So next we have Adria, and then after that, I believe Kayla wants to make a comment.
Hi everyone, thank you for the time. I just wanted to add my voice to the chorus of voices in favor of adding the term anti-racism to the desirable qualities. I think language matters, and I'm in full agreement with all of the points that have been made, and I don't need to speak to them again. I think they were all really well stated. If anything, for me, the job description is very thoughtful. It's very thorough. But there is a lot of generic language, and I think that's to be expected in a job description for a position like this. But I think the more places that we can use very intentional language that rises to the moment, I think we should. So there are even other places in this job description, like the next page under the minimum qualifications. If there's room to add a term like anti-racism, I think that would be warranted as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adria. Kayla, did you have a comment to add?
I just wanted to share, I had an opportunity to participate in a regional meeting with our human resources colleagues. So it's persons from Allen Hancock, Cuesta College. We meet monthly, and one of our representatives serves on the EEO committee at the state level. Her name is Stacy Zuniga. And Stacy shared that Dr. Daisy Gonzalez, who's the deputy chancellor, was talking to the EEO committee that she intends very much so to include anti-racism as part of language in EEO. So while currently I don't see that in my EEO multiple methods or EEO plan, Dr. Daisy Gonzalez made it very clear that she intends to amend that very soon. So it aligns in that. So I just wanted to share that with people.
Thank you, Kayla. Sorry, baby, Mommy can't tell you. It's for decorating cakes. Okay, so I have a question, just to clarify, if the term we're looking to use is anti-racism. Actually, Jareen, do you want to ask the question? I'm not sure I understand it.
I'm asking as a community member and as a parent, the difference between the anti-racism teaching and in this form, is it like the teaching method, or is it just we're saying anti-racism throughout, men, women, all races, and that sort of thing? I just need some clarification.
So my understanding, and I think this is a good point to have, is that anti-racist is someone who is very actionably working against racism and the policies and practices and structural impediments that advance racism. And so it's an intentionality around deconstructing racism and its impacts on our community. So when I'm talking about including it, those are the qualities or actions that I would be looking for this person to be engaged in. I don't know if my board members have a different understanding or if of that concept. Okay. And thank you for that question, Joreen. I see that Marlene Martin has her hand up. Marlene, did you want to make a public comment? You have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm really concerned about the anti-racism and anti-sexism, the assumption that Yuri mentioned that we would have a woman in place. It's time that we not have that as a concept either. It's such a crucial time in our nation, but they're both really important concepts.
Thank you, Marlene. All right, so is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment on the draft superintendent president job description before we take it back to the board for final discussion and action? If you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we're going to close public comment on this item and bring it back to the board for any more discussion, or if there is someone that would like to make a motion.
So I'll start. First of all, on the tiny issue of adding anti-racism, I have not heard one word opposed to it. So I think that that we ought to include it, and I would suggest that we, as part of our second bullet point, add something like commitment to equity, inclusion, diversity, semicolon, and to anti-racism. I think that works well as I've been thinking about it. Second of all, I want to say that in general, I think this is an excellent document. I think it reads well, and I think it's accurate. And I think it puts the college in a good light. It's not entirely easy to do that all the time. So I just want to commend the people who worked on this document. I think it's a great document. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Just for clarification, approve with the addition of and anti-racism on that
Yes,
bullet.
that's right.
Okay. All right, so is there any
Yuri?
other? Yes.
I do apologize. I'm sorry. This is Sean. I had wondered if I had a moment where I could bring up page 2. So there was a revision that the committee had approved that didn't make it on this document. And it may have been because of space considerations, but I wanted to bring it to the board's attention. So the sentence that Jareen has highlighted, it currently reads, MPC's commitment to inclusiveness and equity-minded principles is addressed in the college's 2020 to 2025 institutional goals. However, the committee had suggested instead a revision because equity isn't specifically mentioned in each of the goals. We thought people might misunderstand as it's currently written. So instead we suggested that it is changed to MPC's commitment to inclusiveness and equity-minded principles is embedded throughout the college's 2020 to 2025 education master plan, which articulates the following goals. And I can send that language in a chat to everybody, so if that's easier. But I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I think the committee felt that it was more accurate than the current language.
I also think it's an improvement.
Yeah, I agree. So Sean, was there an issue with the size, the space, the number of characters? Is that what?
I'm not sure. I just personally, I was out sick yesterday, and I just happened to glance at it this morning, today before our meeting, and I noticed that original sentence had stayed. I don't know if Kristen is on the this call, but I don't know if, so I'm sorry, I don't know if space was a consideration.
Oh, Kristen has her hand up.
Hi, I think that just in my editing and trying to get things done quickly, I didn't see that change. There was no intentional desire to keep the old one because of space.
Great, thank you. All right, so Sean has put the revised language in the chat. I heard the maker of the motion suggest like that language better. Is the second of the motion okay with that change as well?
Yes.
Okay, so with that, if there is no other discussion from board members, we will have a roll call vote to approve the draft superintendent president position announcement with the 2 noted edits.
Chair Yuri Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lauren Steck,
Yes.
Trustee Rosalind Green,
Yes.
Trustee Rick Johnson.
Yes.
That is unanimous with the revisions.
Wonderful, thank you. Then the other item that we had on this related to this was the recruitment tentative schedule. So I don't know that we needed to approve it, but just wanted to make sure that the board members were aware of that schedule. And Will, I should be letting you do this probably. We'll stop.
Oh, no, thank you for that. Just really wanted to just in some way sort of remind everybody where we are and what are the next steps. And so now that this position announcement is approved, it's a big step because now we can really enter into the recruiting phase of this process. And, you know, we're on a very tight timeline again. So really appreciate getting that done, and we'll be in this recruiting process for, you know, quite a few weeks here, as you can see. In terms of what does that mean exactly, just share with you briefly. HR will be placing that advertisement as through their normal means in various places where they place that. Dr. Smith and I will be working with college staff also to get the word out to along the various listservs that are available within the system. That works very effectively, by the way, and get lots of response from that. And then also we'll be doing a national reach out through community college search services and our team there. We'll be handling that and getting that out on a through our network and our contacts on a national level. So that'll all be done simultaneously as this goes out, and casting that big net, if you will, in terms of getting the position out there and drawing that interest and recruiting those applicants. And then after that's done, then we move into those other steps that are outlined on there in terms of bringing the committee back together and screening applicants and developing questions and all things leading up to selecting a final candidate for that. So a lot of work left to do, but this next period of time is sort of, on your end, is sort of quiet for Dr. Smith and I. It's a very active period for us. It's actually where we really, the rubber hits the road, so to speak. That's a big part of our work is getting those applicants for you that hopefully will turn into candidates for the position. So we'll be very busy over those weeks, and not a lot of work directly with many of you. And then after we do that, then we'll be back, obviously very connected to you again and continuing with the rest of the process.
Great, thank you.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Thanks. All right, so I'll just ask my colleagues on the board to make note of the week of October 19th. That's the big next set of dates for us and block some availability to do some interviews. Hopefully, I think we're supposed to get at least 3 candidates is what we contracted for with the background checks. If we get more, we'll consider ourselves lucky. So with that, I would just want to echo the thanks and appreciation that has been given to our search committee this evening by different board members. This has been an incredibly thoughtful group who has given a tremendous amount of time. And when we needed some additional work to be done, Jeannie and Sean and Kelly Bostick being willing to step forward and do some more heavy lifting for us and asking for a quick turnaround from committee members to give their feedback. So they're working very hard for our board, listening to what's being brought forward, and the consultants that did a great job of synthesizing all that information and giving us something meaty to work with. So feeling really positive about the process overall, and thankful for the people who are involved with it. So all right, so we do have one more item on our agenda this afternoon, which is item 5C, approve award of the baseball field turf replacement project. And I believe, Mr. Hagler, are you going to talk to us about that?
Yuri, Will had a question real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Just a question, I think probably for Kristen. When could Dr. Smith and I expect to see get a final copy of the position announcement, so that we can, all those other things I just talked about can be kicked off, so to speak?
Yeah,
all timing.
I'm typing while the meeting's going on, but want to wait for Jorene's. I mean, there were very minimal changes, so I don't expect it'll be take long at all. I do have another meeting at 4, so but certainly by this evening, if not earlier.
So tomorrow, that'd be
sure.
That'd be great. Oh, okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
And extra appreciation to Kristen as well. I know she's been working on this template and really brought it in line with some of the new marketing design that's going on. So it's exciting to have this brochure and have it all together right now. So thank you, Kristen.
Kristen also needed clarification regarding that sentence that, let me bring it up. So this bullet point, were we just adding the word anti-racism?
My motion, I think, was you have a semicolon after diversity, and then you have a commitment to equity, inclusion, and diversity, semicolon, and to anti-racism with a hyphen.
And anti-racism. Thank you.
Our English person is telling us that there's something wrong with that. I could see Jeannie's face. She's like freaking out right now.
In that case, I stand.
I'm so sorry. I can't help it. I apologize. Just from a grammatical standpoint, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with the semicolon. But I know that we can also take some literary license if the board members feel strongly.
Well, that was the motion and the second, and we've already taken action. So you're just going to have to live with it, Jeannie. It will always be that little needle on your side.
Yeah. Well, if there's something wrong, we should know.
Lauren, is it okay if she?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Help us be better.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. Thank you.
All right, Steve, it's your show now.
Well, in the absence of Mr. Martin this afternoon, I'm here to present the next board item. We have a bond bid project for the baseball field. The project is to replace the grass that's on the field now with artificial turf. We followed our board policy and our administrative procedure, and are asking the board to approve this item based on the low bidder, which is Granite Construction. Their total bid amount is $1,607,979. We're also asking for the approval of the alternate to include the bullpens, which would be an additional $119,042.
Questions from board members for Mr. Hagler?
Just to be clear that, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go Rick. Go Rick.
I mean, Rick.
Just to be clear, the add-on is also obviously included in the bond expenditures.
Yes.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure.
And I just wanted to go on, to have us go on record. Do we have enough money in our bond funds to cover this, including the alternate bullpen?
It is a tight budget, but it is within budget.
Good.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Looking for hands. *9 if you're on the phone. All right, seeing none, I will close public comment on the item and entertain a motion to approve the award of the baseball turf field replacement project to the lowest responsive bidder, which would be Granite Construction, with the addition of the alternate bullpens.
Second.
So moved. I'm sorry, Yuri, I jumped in there.
That's okay. Motion by Trustee Johnson, second by Trustee Green. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Chair Yuri Anderson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lauren Steck.
Yes.
Trustee Rosalind Green.
Aye.
Trustee Rick Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. That is unanimous.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So that was the end of our agenda. So we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 3:25 p.m. and also make a note we adjourned closed session at 2:07. And wish everyone a great week. We'll see you back here next week for our regular board meeting. Stay well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.